All right, we said we're going to interrupt with breaking news. Andy Byford, the president of the New York City Transit Authority, is apparently going before the microphones. Let's listen in.
Tonight, we received indications from our rail control center that we had lost computer indications to what controls our signaling system on what we call the IRT or the A division. So that's the numbered lines, numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the Times Square shuttle. The indications to the signals were lost at that time. What that meant was that we did not know exactly where our trains were, so for safety reasons we had to ask all trains, instruct all trains to stop where they were, to maintain their positions while we ascertained what exactly was going on, such that we could safely move trains up. I was notified within a couple of minutes, and I went straight upstairs. I was in this building throughout, and I worked with my senior vice president for Subway, Sally Librera, and we calmly and methodically ascertained what had happened. The first phase of any big incident is what I call rescue. So that is about identifying where the trains are. We knew that we had some trains in platforms. We knew that we had some trains in tunnels. Well, again, similar to the blackout the other day, my first question was, do the trains have traction power? Are they on power such that they have lighting and such that they have air conditioning? And we were assured that they were. The problem was that because the signals, the indications for the signals could not be seen in our control center, we were not able to safely run trains. So that was at 5:50. Then progressively, what we did with our field teams, the Rail Control Center, we progressively identified where the trains were. We moved them up using a safe procedure. We moved them up into platforms where we could and moved trains out of tunnels. In parallel, we had our technicians and other technical people working on rebooting the servers. It was the servers that had failed such that the signals could not be seen. So the servers were rebooted, and progressively the signal indications came back up. Once we could be certain that we had signal indication and that we knew that we could safely move the trains, we instructed a phased restart, and the trains began to move. We dealt with the express lines first because there were lineups of trains along the express line. We made sure that there were no trains caught in river tubes, and we progressively reinstated the service to the point that at 7:16 tonight, the service was restored on those numbered lines, including the Times Square shuttle. So in anticipation of your next question or your first question, we do not yet know what the root cause of this failure was, and certainly that wasn't my priority. That investigation is now underway. My priority was to make sure that we ascertained where people were, where all of our trains were, that we made sure that people were safe, and then we progressively moved the trains up and got the service running again once we'd rebooted those servers. So the investigation is now underway. We will get to the bottom of it. At the moment, I cannot tell you what the root cause was, but we will get to the bottom of that. Priority number one for me was keeping people safe and getting people home, and the service is now up and running in all of those affected lines. Last couple of points. There were some sections of the numbered lines in the Bronx that were still working. What we call the B division, in other words, the lettered lines, were working throughout. So there was subway service. We also got our bus teams to accept subway tickets such that we could still move people about, particularly across Manhattan and on the north-south routes. So that's what we know. I'll be happy to take your questions. So.
Have you ruled anything out in terms of a cause, or I guess the other way to say this, or what are the options? Was it potentially heat-related? Was it potentially security, an IT security issue?
Yeah. So I'm not going to speculate on the cause. My priority, as I've just said tonight, was to make sure that people were safe and to get them moving. We will get to the bottom of this. Let's deal with the facts as we know them. What we know is that for reasons yet to be identified, we lost indications on the signals so that our rail control center could not see where trains were on the numbered lines. And obviously you've got to know where trains are in order to be able to move them. What the root cause was, I do not yet know, but we will get to the bottom of that. Ma'am.
There was a recent issue, July 6th, something similar. Are these two issues related? Is this a sign of ongoing problems with these communication systems with the MTA?
That's one of my questions. So you want to know exactly what happened here? So do I. I absolutely want to get to the bottom of this, and that will be one of my questions to the technical people, to the IT specialists and the signal maintainers. That is one of the first questions on my list. I am aware of that incident. We will want to know, was that in any way related?
I have two questions. I just wanted to know, is there anything sinister at play here? Is terrorism being looked at or anything like that, hacking? And also, just to follow up, that Mayor de Blasio calls it unacceptable, says you need to apologize to New Yorkers. What do you say to both those things?
Well, as I said, there's no root cause yet, and certainly I've not heard any indication that there was any malfeasance, that there was anything untoward. This does appear to be a computer-related issue that, for some reason, yet to be established, took down our means of seeing where trains are. In terms of what other people have said, I'm not going to comment on that. My priority tonight was to identify where trains were and to get people home safely, and that we've achieved. Dan.
And back to the July 6th one, it's been more than a week now. What did you do after that one? What changes were made, and why are we seeing another one so soon?
So that investigation has not yet concluded into the July 6th. One of my questions to my IT person tonight was, because we have been looking into that incident, obviously, and one of my questions was, have we done anything to the system since that incident that might be the root cause of this? We don't believe that's the case, but effectively I'm rolling these two incidents into one to identify why is it that we have suffered this apparently similar incident. We will get to the bottom of that, sir.
We've spoken with several subway passengers who are obviously very frustrated, angry. They were on sweltering hot platforms. They were stuck for a while on Friday evening. What would you say to them?
I totally understand their frustration. I'm frustrated about it as well. This should have happened. You know, New Yorkers should be able to rely on the transit system to get them home. So I do understand that although you know, the good news is the traction current remained on, so lighting remained on, station lighting remained on, air conditioning remained on. This could not have happened at the worst time. It was the height of the evening peak, and obviously for customers waiting either on a hot platform or on a train, this is frustrating. People have got places to go, and also it is frustrating, even though we were pumping out information and saying to our train crews, try and keep your customers informed, it's still frustrating nonetheless. So I absolutely understand their frustration. My commitment to our customers, we will get to the bottom of this.
Has this ever happened before July 6th?
Well, it's hard to answer that question until we know what it is.
Okay.
So have we had incidents in the past where we have lost indications and the rail control centre can't see where trains are? Yes. Is that the same as what happened tonight? I don't know. Until we get to the root cause, we don't know that.
It sounds like what you're saying is you were essentially flying for this section of service. Is there a standard operating procedure that you have in place specifically for this scenario?
Yes, so if you lose indication on signals, signals are there to protect the movement of trains. So the first priority is to the trains stop. The operators know that if they don't have signals, they will stop. The rail control center knows that it needs to regain a visual indication of those signals and the switches, which is equally important, before we can safely move trains. But we do have a procedure whereby if a train is trapped, there is a procedure to safely move it up into platforms. Now that, though, is still something that takes a bit of time, because precisely for the reason that you don't have signals, you cannot rush these things. So this incident took some time to clear, because we first had to identify where trains were and which trains they were, and then progressively, safely move them up as we in parallel got the service rebooted.
Have there been major changes to your IT infrastructure that governs that system, that communication system, recently?
Not recently. You've heard me speak before. There's a general need to absolutely modernize the whole of New York City transit so that we can make our system more reliable and we can run more trains. But there's nothing related to this particular incident that we're aware of that relates to a recent upgrade. But again, we'll get to the bottom of that with the investigation.
I'm not sure I heard. Does this particular system that failed have a name? And does it have a backup?
Yes.
It's designed to fail over.
Yes and yes. So the system we're talking about is ATS, which is automatic train supervision. So the A division, the numbered lines, we do have a big visual indication in the rail control center such that we can see where trains are. And this is automated train supervision, unlike on the B division, which is controlled by individual signal towers. So this is a more modern system. Does it have a backup? Yes. The backup did not appear to work, so that again is something that we need to get to the bottom of in this comprehensive investigation as to why this happened and why the backup appears not to have kicked in. Ma'am.
How many trains were in the tunnels? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, we certainly were aware of 2 in one of the tunnels. We believe there was another 2 in one of the tunnels near here. Again, I don't really want to speculate more than that. We are aware there were some trains in tunnels, but because there was so much information we were trying to assimilate, my main priority was just making sure those trains were moved quickly. Trains in tunnels is the first priority.
You said the B system does not operate similar to the E system.
Yeah.
How do those two different?
So there's effectively, on the New York City subway, we have 2 different divisions, and there's reasons for that. The actual design of the system, for historical reasons, is slightly different. The biggest difference between the A division, the numbered lines, and the B division, the lettered lines, is that the B division is controlled by more traditional signal towers, where you've got personnel operating a small section of line, who then pass on to their colleagues in the next section of line, whereas the A division, the Rail Control Center, oversees the whole division, which is the norm. That is where we need to get to so that the RCC sees all of it. It's all safe, but it does mean that in the B division you have a more limited oversight of where trains are.
And if I heard you correctly, you were saying you restarted the system and then things started working.
Yep.
Is that all it took to fix, I guess, the problem? How do you know that restarting was, clear the issue?
So there was a couple of things we were doing in parallel. We were, because you cover all your bases, we started to move personnel to backup facilities like local control centers, even on the A division, but it was much quicker to reboot the servers. And so how do we know that that worked? Very simple. Once we rebooted the servers, the indications, the signal indications, reappeared on the controllers, the dispatchers diagram, so we began to get a very clear picture of where all the trains were, which trains they were, and what the prevailing state of the signals and the switches were. So that's how we knew that A, we'd got service back, we'd got indications back, and B, that we could give the command, the instruction for train service to resume. Dan?
When you lose the signals, can you describe just the process of manually moving by trains and how long that takes?
Sure. So the first priority whenever you've got a situation like this is you need to what we call spot the trains first. In other words, identify exactly where they are in proximity to other trains, and ideally what their identification is. In other words, which train exactly is it. Once you're certain you know which train you're dealing with and what's ahead of it, there is a procedure which is called keying by, where an train operator can key by a signal, a dark signal or a failed signal, with confidence and in safety and under the authority of the Rail Control Center. But again, that's not something that you do lightly. You do one train at a time, and you progressively move trains into platforms, clear them of customers, get the customers off, make sure they're safe, and then you can move up the trains that are caught behind. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Okay, you just watched a press conference from New York City Transit Chief Andy Byford, and I'm a little speechless from what I just heard. He said at around 5:50 p.m., the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, and the S train lost signals. They didn't know where these trains were. So all the trains had to stop before they can find out where they were. Some trains were in tunnels, some were on platforms. They had to worry about air conditioning for people. They started to move the trains out of the tunnels. They rebooted service. You know how you reboot your computer? Apparently it was something like that because it's a computer-related issue. Progressively, Byford said the signals came back on. They dealt with the express tracks first, then they went to the local tracks, and at 7:16, apparently service was restored, but don't take that literally. There are tremendous delays from what we're hearing. They don't know the root cause. He would only say that he didn't think there was any malfeasance, that somebody was up to no good. He just thinks it was a computer-related issue, Mr. Byford said. But listen to this. He also said the backup system didn't work. So the backup system didn't work. He said that's a real concern. He would not comment on Mayor de Blasio's demand for an apology. Well, no surprise there. In the meantime, lots of questions to be answered. We will continue to follow this very carefully. But in the meantime, you might want to see if you can grab a bus or walk to wherever you're going. Continuing coverage on CBS 10 New York. We'll be right back.